Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Followers of the show will know that we're part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we help you to create at your best, connect you with like-minded individuals, and therefore help you to grow and develop your creative business. That sounds like a good idea to you and you'd like to find out more? Please don't hesitate to contact us after the show. We'd love to hear from you. But this is On the Couch with Creatives. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
Chamiah DEWEY is on the couch today. She is the founder of the UK's first clothing brand for people of short stature, that is under the height of 5 feet. She's recently been recognized as one of the top 100 leaders in the disability sector in the UK. So let's get her on the couch. Hi, Chamiah. Welcome to On the Couch with Creatives. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Well, let's kick off with exactly how you started in this business.
So I always wanted to be a fashion designer, so that's something. And it was in 2018, it was just before I was going off to university to study fashion design, when I met a young person who had dwarfism. And at the time, I didn't really know anything about the condition dwarfism. I'd possibly seen a few people on TV, and that's probably as far as my knowledge really went. And I spent about a month with this young person, so I got to know them quite well. And through our relationship with each other, we used to speak a little bit about her condition, and she taught me loads about her anatomy and some of the things she struggled with and some of the things she didn't struggle with that I possibly thought she would have, and all of those things. And she was such a resilient person, and I was really inspired by that. And she just had a real profound impact on me. And after this month-long youth program, I did some Googling because I noticed what people wear. When I walk down the street, I'm looking at everyone's clothes. When I walk in clothes shops, I'm like looking at stitching and detail and fit and all the fun stuff. So clothing's really big for me. So I did some Googling because I thought, well, I wonder where she gets her clothes from. And I just found that there just wasn't really anything out there. The only thing that really did exist was really pricey. It was really basic. And I just thought, this was a 16-year-old girl. She wants to look like her friends. She wants to look cool. She wants to fit in. She doesn't want to, one, spend loads of money on clothes that don't look great or probably don't feel great. And two, she wants something that's a bit more accessible and stylish and something that her friends would want to wear and all of those things. So that's really where the idea of DEWEY came from. And it's just been a bit of a whirlwind since then. I did some projects at uni around clothing for little people. And in about October 2020, I decided I was going to really make a go of it. I was studying an enterprise course at university at London College of Fashion. And yeah, since then, I've just quite literally not stopped. It's just been a process of extensive research and sampling and getting to know my customer. And it's really expanded from, originally it was clothing for women with dwarfism, and now we create clothing for anyone under 5 foot. So we've really pivoted the business recently, and we're reaching a much larger market, and I think fulfilling our passion and our mission even more so than when we started. So that's kind of how I got started, and it's been, like I say, it's been non-stop pretty much since then.
Well, I can imagine, because it's something I'll admit to not thinking too much about, but having you said about dwarfism, and again, like myself, I come across it mainly in the movies. So how it's a lovely story that young girl really had an impact on you. You wanted to make a change. What did she do for clothes? What was her route? What were her challenges?
So I don't remember that we specifically spoke about it, me and her, but I did speak to lots and lots of people through this process, so I can speak for them, and I can imagine her story is probably similar. So for the majority of people with dwarfism especially, and with other short stature conditions, they tend to buy clothing on the high street. So in the UK, they'd go to, let's say, H&M, River Island, Topshop, you name it. They'll go to supermarkets, high street stores, that kind of thing. And then, of course, that stuff's too big for them. So then they will alter it, whether they have a local seamstress that they work with, that's quite common. They'll go and send everything off for tailoring as soon as they buy it, which has its own issues. With one, it's really costly, and quite often it can cost more than the garment itself. You imagine you buy a pair of jeans for, I don't know, £40, and you need to take in the waist, you've got to take it up at the hem, you've got to do other things to it, adjust pockets or whatever else. You're going to be spending more than £40 getting it fixed. And also, if you've just bought a pair of jeans, again, let's use that as an example, you can't wear it instantly because it's going to be sat with the seamstress for a week, 2 weeks, who knows. And lastly, things get botched sometimes. I've heard stories of people who've sent stuff off and it's come back and it's just unwearable. So that's one route that a lot of people take. The other one is they'll just DIY it. They'll cut things off, they'll roll it up, they'll hem things themselves. Like, that's typically what happens. Some people are fortunate that they have usually a mum or a nan that knows how to sew, and they'll just ship it all off to, I don't know, the nan's house and say, "Hi nan, got loads of pairs of trousers for you to fix." And so I imagine this girl would have done the same, that you either roll it, you cut it, or you spend that money and you send it off somewhere, or you get your gran to do it, or I know, an uncle or whoever it might be. But it really is.
Or even buy clothes from children's departments, but then that's not appropriate, age appropriate.
Yeah, and also some people definitely can and some people do. I know that Zara children's, River Island children, and I think H&M children's sections are pretty good, because the clothing now is pretty grown up, even in the children's sections. But if you imagine, there's lots and lots of people, again, if we use dwarfism especially, who, while their bones are shorter, their muscle and their skin and their fat and everything else is the same quantity as an average type person. So everything goes outwards. So that's why they've got quite big thighs, let's say, and quite big bottoms, and they might have wider arms, especially in the top. So you imagine children's clothing is made for like a very straight down, slim figure. And if you're, I don't know, a 40-year-old woman who's had kids and isn't in that body, children's section, even then, while it's inappropriate anyway, just doesn't fit.
Yeah. And it would be getting harder, because if you have got a relative that can help, who knows how to sew, but again, sewing and seamstressing isn't taught in schools anymore as part of the bog standard curriculum. It used to be years ago in the home economics department. You were taught to cook and how to clean your house and how to fix things and all that kind of stuff, but that sort of stuff isn't really taught so much anymore. So knowing how to do it yourself, I mean, okay, you can probably sit for hours in front of Google, but even that it's time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I say to everyone that I know who is short stature, who is in that position, that to try and learn, if you can, to follow some YouTube videos. There are some things that can make your life easier, like using like hemming web, where it's kind of sticky both sides, a bit like double-sided tape for fabric, really. There are things you can do to make it easier, but as we say, it's not taught in schools. It's an extra time expense. Who really wants to sit down and learn how to use a sewing machine? Not many people. Like, even as a fashion designer, it's taken me years to actually enjoy the process. And like I say, I'm a fashion designer. I love clothes. I love making stuff. So yeah, I mean, if I could do anything to change legislation, it would be that everyone should learn how to sew, as you say, how to, I don't know, make a bed, how to make a basic dinner. Like, these things are real amazing life skills. Imagine if everyone knew how to hem their trousers. Like, what a difference that would make to people's lives, especially my customer. So yeah, it's an issue.
And changing tires. Everybody should learn how to change a tire. And how to
Change a plug.
bulb. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue how to change my attire.
Okay, so how did you start off? Because obviously you ran your own business. How did you start off? Did you think, oh, I want to make a career of this and I need to find a job? Or did you go straight into thinking, I'm going to start my own business?
So, like I mentioned before, I did always want to be a fashion designer. And I was really, really inspired by Christian Dior. He's like my favorite designer ever. I'm just obsessed. I love the whole story. I've read a bit of his biography, and like there's so many little things that kind of align in our lives. And so I was really, really inspired by him. And I watched a documentary when I was younger. I think I must have been around 10, 12-ish, let's say. And it was a Dior documentary, and it was all about how they started the Dior fashion house and how it was all about making women feel really feminine and empowered. So from a young age, that was my idea. I was going to start a clothing brand when I finished uni, and I was going to do it to make women feel good. That was originally kind of my thought process. So that has carried through my life. And then, like I say, I met this young girl, had this light bulb moment, and then my mission shifted from making women feel great, like average height women, let's say, feel great, to wow, there's really a community here that can really make use of that, and that thing of making people feel confident is so needed in this specific community of people. So in my third year at uni, which I was doing an extended course, so a 4-year course, in your third year you do a placement. So most people will go and work for a design house. I don't know, you might go and work for Alexander McQueen, you might be a runner, you might do some pattern cutting or whatever it might be. And it really didn't appeal to me on one hand. And I also just couldn't afford to, because the majority of fashion jobs, and I think as you probably both can agree, in the creative industry are unpaid or like absolute minimum expenses only. I just couldn't afford that. So I got a job in a school for that year, and I signed up to an enterprise course at my uni, which was a relatively new course. I think I was the second cohort that they'd ever run it. And I just thought, this is perfect. We spent a year, we got a business coach, we got to learn things from, I don't know, marketing to customer archetypes to how to register IP and how to start a cash flow and all the things you really need when you start a business. I got the basics, which I still look back and I think like, wow, what a fortunate thing that came along in that moment that I was able to do. So that's really how it started. But I think I've always strived to work for myself, especially when people were going out and getting jobs as runners and, I don't know, working at London Fashion Week behind the scenes. It just really didn't appeal to me to go and do that for someone else when I could work equally as hard for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that I just couldn't afford to get a job in the industry, whereas if I could have, things probably would have been quite different. I probably would have gone and done that, and I would have possibly stayed on and worked for them when I graduated, but it just wasn't an option, so I had to make this work.
It's iniquitous because those kind of creative industries just don't even get to see some of the most amazing talent because the talent can't afford to work for them.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. It really is.
Nobody should really be paying to go and work for somebody else. You know. And I do have this problem within the TV and film industry. Any big brand, you know, you get that, oh, well, we are so big and you should be on your bended knee for the love of coming to work for us. No, they're still people who've still got mortgages to pay or bills to pay or rent to pay. You know, you need to give people a fair and decent wage if they're going to come to work for you. Like there are a lot of companies as well that, you know, companies that have uniforms where the employees have to buy their uniforms to go and work in their shops. It's like, to me, that's like, what is wrong with you? Why would anybody do that? You know, I think it's absolutely absurd.
It is absurd. I used to work in a pretty high end, it's like a premium retail shop in the UK while I was at uni, and we'd get, I think it was like £100 allowance, which in this particular shop, £100 didn't even get you like a blouse, let's say. So then you'd have to spend like a good couple of hundred just for some uniform. and you would just have to just wash it a million times and get as much wear out of it as you could. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, the whole system is pretty messed up, especially with those big brands, like I mentioned, like Alexander McQueen, let's say, some of those massive names that we know have
a lot of money,
millions and billions of pounds, could afford to pay an intern at least a minimum wage or at least a living wage. But I mean, in my case, it worked out well because it pushed me to do what I wanted to do, and I got to learn from business coaches and other people in the business realm. So it can work out, but it's definitely unfair.
Are you a sole operator or do you have a staff?
So I very recently actually developed a bit of a team. So I've got a couple of other business partners now, but for the first almost 3 years, it was just me. It's literally the past month or two, I've kind of expanded and started to build a team, which is really exciting. It's very nice to not be doing every single little job on my own, and having other people that know more about, I know, finance than I do. Because I always think when you're doing it on your own, you obviously have to wear every hat possible. And while lots of us can kind of make do, like I did all right in maths at school, that's fine. But that was learning, I don't know, timesing and dividing. I wasn't being taught how to set up a cash flow, or do you know what I mean? I wasn't taught how you work out your taxes at the end of the year or whatever it might be. So it's lovely to have some people to help me now. And it's exciting because it means that we're growing and there's no stopping. It's only ramping up. So yeah.
So now,
sorry, Melanie.
So now your business is developing. What do some of your clients say about you for providing the service that you provide?
So it's been really lovely. The past, as I say, roughly 3 years, because it is about 3 years now. As I say, it was October 2020. The feedback has always been positive, which in the beginning I was really nervous. I'm an average height person. I'm like 5'2", so relatively small, but not a short stature person. And I'm non-disabled, so I don't have any personal lived experience of the client that I designed for. So there was that worry that people were going to look at me and think, why is she doing it? What's she getting out of it? Or thinking I had the wrong intentions. But fortunately, as I say, it's been positive the whole way. And I think the biggest feedback I get now, especially as things are growing and the reach is growing and all sorts, the biggest feedback is like a thank you. People just want to say, thank you so much for doing this. And people will message and say like, oh, I'm 4'7" and I've been waiting for this my whole life. I just want to thank you for what you're doing. And I'm really excited for what's next. And you'd be so shocked how many people live their whole lives, their entire lives, without wearing clothes designed for their bodies. And I speak to so many people. I had a message from someone recently that was, I think she said she was 79 and she was, I don't know, let's say 4'8". She was relatively small. And it's the first time she'd seen this. And it's like the first time she had that like hope of, wow, I might be able to buy something soon that fits and I don't have to alter it and it makes me feel good. So yeah, that's the biggest piece of feedback that I get nowadays. It's just a thank you. And usually people tell me a little bit about their story of how long they've been waiting for this, or possibly they've had this idea and they've just been waiting for someone to do it. So it's really nice and it's a good motivator every day. And I open my inbox and I see messages like that.
How do you get clients and how do they find you?
So, I mean, as I said, very recently I've started to build a team and we're kind of restructuring a little bit at the moment. So there's not necessarily new product out right now, but typically before we kind of sold out of all the product and we were developing new things, people will find us typically via Instagram, a little bit on TikTok. We've had a couple of viral TikToks. One of them has been seen by over 100 million people. It just went crazy after London Fashion Week last year. And so that's amazing. So lots of people find us that way. I think word of mouth is probably quite a big one for us. I think especially when we go to conventions in the UK and say there's 200-300 people there, they'll all go back and tell their other short stature friends. And And social media is a bit like word of mouth now, isn't it? When people share your stuff on their stories, that then gets seen by all of their followers. So that's really how people find us. And then I suppose a little bit through networking, when I speak to other business owners, or I speak to people who are, I don't know, influencers in the space, and we kind of build connections that way. But I would say the majority is still word of mouth. Social media is how people really find us.
Well, it's free marketing.
Yeah, it is free, but it just takes a long time.
Yeah, but that is the beauty, I was going to say earlier, of being part of a networking team like Creative, where we have so many people from different creative disciplines and from industries or from companies or whatever, who support creators. So you were saying, oh, you don't know much about finance. We have an accountant who specializes in dealing with chaotic, crazy creatives when it comes to dealing with their books, you know? So networking is also very important if you are a sole trader and you're running your own business, very much so.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also, I always think it's really nice when you get to speak to other startups as well, or other creatives especially, because life is very chaotic as a startup and a creative. Things always feel messy. It always feels like there's something that's not quite right, or it's not quite as organized as you'd like it. So it's lovely when you get to speak to other people that are the same, and you just kind of had that sigh of relief, and you're like, well, it's not only me, other people are in a similar position. It feels really nice. So the networking has been a really important part of, I think, me even just building my confidence that I am capable. While things may feel messy, everyone's journey probably looks similar or different. And yeah, it's been really nice to have support systems around me.
And it's not just professional support systems, because we find in creative, Melanie gets COVID again and everybody says, oh, I hope you get better soon, Melanie. And then one of our members is just recently been in hospital. And, you know, and it's almost like having a family.
Yeah, no, it really is. I used to always say there's a group of us adaptive designers in the UK, and we're like a little family. And when we get to see each other at, I don't know, different conferences, and if we ever do panel talks and we get together, it really is like a little family. Everyone's excited to see each other. And yeah, like when someone comes down sick, everyone's sending their love. And it is really nice. Like you say, it is like having another family. And it's really lovely that we're in similar spaces, that we can understand each other on a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that, because it running your own business is tough. You know, people say you've got to be a certain kind of crazy to run your own business, and I suppose it's true. And you know, sometimes in your 3 years when you're first starting out, it can be quite lonely. You know, and you do have those mind monkeys like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And if you've got people around that can just lift you up when you need it, it's just invaluable, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like, I've definitely had those moments. I'd say maybe like once every 6 to 8 months, let's say, I'll have a bit of a moment where I'm like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Like just before the summer, I started applying to marketing jobs because I was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to get a job and I need a salary and I need to just stabilize my life. And then I got the job. Obviously, I didn't want it, so I turned it down and carried on what I was doing. But you do need other people to just chat to. And I mean, in that scenario, I didn't speak to anyone about it. But I know that had I spoken to my network and my support system, everyone would have been like, what are you doing? You don't want that job. Carry on what you're doing. It will all work itself out. So it is really important to just have that, but also to be able to like share those stories and have a bit of a giggle about it. Someone else is like, oh yeah, I do that sometimes as well. Like I've got my CV updated all the time just in case. And
me too.
Yeah, it's a funny world. It's a funny world to be in the startup realm.
Yeah.
You'll laugh about this in about 10 years' time when you're running a team of about 500.
Yeah, I know. That is what I always think, is I'll look back and just think, imagine if I'd gone for that marketing job, then what would have happened? Or imagine if I'd, like we say, if I'd gone into the industry at uni instead of doing this enterprise course and starting my business, how different would my life have been? It's crazy to think.
Yeah. You'll be saying, I'm going to get a proper job for a holiday.
Yeah, yeah, literally. Yeah, because
I need a break. I'm going to go get a proper job.
that is the thing, isn't it? Like you say, it's so chaotic and crazy. And as I say, like things have been ramping up recently and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So it means that my days are, instead of being like an 8-hour day like usual, they're probably more like a 12 to 14-hour day. So when you get into this, it really is like a type of crazy. You've got to be so passionate and so motivated and resilient to just get through every day and just get all of these tasks done with a never-ending to-do list that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, and there's so many pros to it that I could never imagine just going and getting that marketing job. Couldn't imagine it.
So what's next for Dewey Fashion as you're growing? What are your plans? Can you say what your plans are, or is it all top secret?
No, I can definitely talk a bit about it. So as I mentioned, it's only really quite recently that we've pivoted away from clothing for people with dwarfism to clothing for people under 5 foot. So definitely I'm in a stage of still learning. I'm always learning every day. I'm learning through the people that I follow, the communities that I'm part of, the different organizations that I now follow, because lots of people don't think about it, but to be short stature, some people don't have conditions. Some people are just small. They just have a small family, whatever it might be. Other people might have growth hormone deficiencies. They might have conditions like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or spinal muscular atrophy, and so many conditions that fall under the short stature bracket. So while before I was focusing on dwarfism, I now have lots of other things to learn. So I spend a lot of time learning. Quite recently, I developed a kind of second iteration of our size chart. So as you would imagine, if you go into, let's say, H&M in the UK, you go and walk into a shop, you could get a small, medium or large, whatever you choose to buy, and roughly it's going to fit. Whereas of course with my customer, I had to create that. So I've had to take data points from so many people and kind of curate one. So I've spent some time doing that recently, and that's all going to influence the new collections, and the new collections will be more height inclusive. Before, I was designing for people who were roughly 4 foot, let's say, because I always found that would tend to be an average with people with dwarfism. But as I say, we've pivoted. We've got a much larger market now. Lots and lots of people message me who are 4'7" or 4'9" or 4'11", or they're just under that 5 foot bracket. So going forward, we'll have different leg lengths and different sleeve lengths to really cater to those people, because that's really, if you really simplified the whole thing, our whole mission, it really is about having a different sleeve and leg length. So to put it really simply, the mission behind Dewey really is to offer clothing that has different leg lengths and sleeve lengths. If we just took all of the other stuff out of it, all the other stuff we're passionate about, if we can produce clothing for people under 5 foot that has different arm lengths and sleeve lengths, we'll be catering to so many people. So that really is what we're working on. We're working on new collections that are height inclusive and size inclusive. And just, I'm really passionate about simplifying things as much as I can, because as I mentioned earlier, until now, our customer goes to the high street, they pick something up, they have to alter it or cut it or whatever they do. I really want this to be a simplified journey so that they can buy easily and they don't need to feel so different, because I think that's a really big thing that our customers struggle with, is just feeling very different. And so that's kind of what we're working on. It's a little bit secretive, but that's kind of the main mission that we're working towards at the moment.
How do you get your ideas for fashion? I mean, obviously you follow fashion trends, but do you nix some ideas, or do you make up your own design?
I've always really loved clothing that just looks really good. Like, I just love clothing that's just fitted really well, makes people look great, really flatters people's figures or whatever it might be. So I'm definitely influenced by what I see people wearing. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if I go and walk down the street, I will just notice what everyone wears and I'll just pick things up. So I kind of get inspiration from everywhere, I think. I think when I was at uni and when I was a bit younger, I was inspired a lot by nature, and I just love shapes and things like that. But essentially everything I do is to make people look good and feel good. And whether that's comfort wise, it needs to be comfortable as like a bare minimum, and two, to make them feel like amazing, that they just feel great. Like, I don't know, you put on your favorite jacket, let's say, you just feel really great, and you can just go out into the world with your best foot forward, your best face forward, and it just makes a real difference. So yeah, I really do get inspiration from just everywhere, and just what I see other people wearing and what looks good on people.
Where are you actually based? Because I assume you have clients coming to you for fittings, but you must have clients elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, so I don't really do many in-person fittings. The majority of things are done over Zoom nowadays. I'm based in Hampshire in the UK, so I'm right down on the south coast, like as far south as you can get. That's where I am. But yeah, I have clients everywhere. Like, very recently sent out a suit to a lady in Australia. I've been working with another girl actually in Australia on her dress for formals, and they go all around the UK, they go out to America. The clients are everywhere, so Zoom comes in very, very handy when we do fittings. And we always do samples just to make sure things are going to be fitted well. But it's exciting to work with people from all over. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm glad that I've been able to do it so early on.
Fantastic. It sounds amazing. What are your 3 top tips, Chamiah, for anybody listening to this thinking, wow, that sounds amazing, or young fashion designers who are thinking about branching out into a new niche that maybe somebody's not covered before?
I think the first thing I'd say is just get started. Like, there's a saying, isn't there, that the best day to do something was yesterday, but the second best day is today. And it's so true that you just have to get started. Like, whatever it is, just do it now. Even if you don't feel ready, you don't feel qualified to, at the very least, you could come up with a name for the business, or you can come up with a colour palette that you like, or whatever it is. Like, start now would be my first tip. Just start. You don't need to know everything. I certainly didn't know everything. I don't think anyone who starts a business knows everything in the beginning, but you just get started. Otherwise, it will never happen. I think the second piece of advice I would say is, especially for people looking to go into niches, and especially I think with disability, is not to be scared, because so many people are really nervous of saying the wrong thing, so they just don't do it. But anyone, I think, in the disabled community will tell you that they would rather you just asked, or they would rather you just tried and got it wrong, and then they can just tell you the right way next time, and you just learn. I make mistakes sometimes. I definitely say things wrong and have to get picked up, and then I change it, and we all learn every day. Things change all the time, especially in today's day and age. Language changes constantly. Like, the kind of things you should say or shouldn't say changes on like a monthly basis. So just don't be scared, just do it. People will appreciate your effort. And what would my last tip be? I think my last tip probably would be around burnout and overworking yourself. As I said, my days at the moment are like 12, 14 hours a lot of the time. They're really, really long. They're very intense. They don't stop. So being kind to yourself is definitely something that I've learned. Is if I wake up one morning and I'm absolutely exhausted, I'll just snooze my alarm, and I'll just, the other morning I woke up and I was knackered, so I just gave myself an extra half an hour to just sleep. Just being kind to yourself when you can. And the benefit of working for yourself, as I do, as much as I do need to get as much packed into my day, if I am really knackered, I can have a slower morning. Or I can say to myself, right, at 5 p.m. tonight, I am actually going to stop, and I'm going to go and sit on the sofa, watch TV, whatever it might be. It's just be really kind to yourself, because it's tough. And like you've mentioned earlier, it's lonely. Speak to people, have a chat with someone if you're struggling and you think you need to go and get a marketing job. You don't, just go and chat to someone. I'm sure you'll get over that phase. So yeah, I think that's probably my 3 top tips for people wanting to get started.
And how do people get hold of you?
So the majority of people will find us on Instagram. Our handle everywhere now is DEWEY_clothing. And otherwise, LinkedIn for me personally is just Chamiah DEWEY, my name. which I'm sure people can see in the show notes or tagged somewhere. Either Chamiah DEWEY on LinkedIn or DEWEY_clothing on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere we can be.
Fantastic. Now we're going to delve into that creative brain of yours, Chamiah. And I'm going to ask you to pick a card for our Values Jam game, and we shall ask you about whatever value you pick in a creative way.
Okay.
Just
so how do I just tell you to stop?
Yeah.
Stop.
All right, in the middle. Okay, what did you pick? What did you pick? Oh, this is a very good one too. Our guests pick the most brilliant cards that are just so apt all the time. It's brilliant.
Really?
You picked fulfillment.
Oh, interesting.
Fulfillment. I think that's a very good card for you and your business. So, Chamiah, what does fulfillment mean to you? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Ooh. I think it looks like, I'm imagining my life from a bird's eye view, and I'm thinking it looks like waking up every day looking forward to what you do and having a purpose behind it. As much as we can enjoy, I don't know, I enjoy drawing, let's say. The purpose behind that is just that it relaxes me. But I'm talking about in a work sense. The fulfillment is that you wake up every day excited to work and excited to fulfill that dream, especially, as I said, when you have really long days and you've got lots to do. If you don't have that purpose and fulfillment behind it, then you're stuffed. Was it feel was the next one?
Yeah, feel like. What does it feel like?
I think fulfillment feels like a big warm hug with like a big, you know, one of those like big snuggly fleeces.
Yeah.
I can imagine just someone that hugging me with a big snuggly fleece. And just feeling
that.
fulfilled and content. And smell was the other one, wasn't it?
Sound.
Oh, sound. Ooh,
but we can talk about smell.
Yeah.
We don't mind talking about smell.
Okay. I was just thinking with smell, maybe like a good candle. Feels like a very fulfilling smell, like a nice vanilla-y candle.
Nice.
And sound, the first thing my brain went to was the sound of like a crowd cheering. And that took me straight back to when I did London Fashion Week in 2022, and that was the first time I'd done Fashion Week. It's obviously for my brand, and once all the models had finished and everyone was just clapping, that felt like pure fulfillment of like, I've just done this thing and everyone's happy. So I think a room of people clapping would be my sound.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we are really clapping you on, Chamiah, because it sounds like you have a wonderful business going there, and it can only get bigger. It can only expand. So onwards and upwards.
Yeah, no, that's what I always say. It can only get bigger. We just keep plodding along. We just get bigger and bigger each year and just impact more and more people positively each day. It's a lovely thing to be able to do. I'm very privileged to have such a meaningful job. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that. And we do wish you every success, and I'm delighted that we met via LinkedIn, fantastic platform, and that we've been able to talk to you today and share your message with more people, because more people need to know about what it is you do and how they can get in touch with you if they need to. It's a fantastic enterprise. It's very fulfilling, absolutely fulfilling. I can imagine how wonderful that feels.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, and being able to share the stories lovely, and being able to relive those moments is always nice. So I appreciate you having me.
And on that note, we run out of time again. All our wonderful guests, I always think, I can't believe the time is up. We could talk to you forever, but we will keep an eye on what you're doing. Perhaps you can come on again at some point a little further down the line and let us know how you're going. But for the moment, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you to my beautiful co-host, Julie Hyde-Mew. Thank you to our lovely audience for watching the show today. But until next time, we'll see you.